near the ocean. So now there's been quite a bit of exposure to Ericeira. You just saw a photo of me in Santa Cruz. And last week I was in Espinho. One of the things Espinho is known for is their Monday farmers market. And the only descriptions I had heard of the Monday farmers market in Espinho was, it's huge. It goes on forever. Don't go too far in. You'll never find your way out. I mean, it's like, that has got to be one big market to get. I mean, that's the only description I've ever heard of it. It's like, what's in it? I don't know. It's gigantic. So I said, okay, I need to go there. I didn't, well, I guess I did know because of checkout time and so on. It was midday, so close to noon, high sun. I had a 10 to 15 kilo backpack on my back, and I was walking through this. It was 3/4 of a kilometer long. I measured it on my exercise app. It was nearly, I mean, 3/4 of a kilometer long and another 1/4 of a kilometer wide, or kilometer. I'm still trying to get used to that. I think I never realized kilometer was just an American way. Anyway, because I was there, I made a point of, okay, I'm hot, I have my backpack on, but I'm going to see this entire market. So
why did you respond in that way, James? I mean, some people would have said to themselves, it's the biggest market, it's huge, you go in there and you won't come out. Some people have taken that advice and they wouldn't have gone. But for you, you had to see it.
I had to see it. I had to see what, I mean, everything I'd ever seen on Espinho always included this aspect of it. The Monday farmers market. Everyone I've ever talked to who's been to Espinho says, have you been to the market? I mean, it's just the thing. I mean, we, in the United States, we have Costco. I don't know if they've gone international or not. You've got IKEA, which is kind of all over everywhere. These big, giant warehouse stores. You say you can get anything. Well, that's this market. I mean, wow. Except for I didn't see anything like living room or bedroom furniture, but pretty much anything else you want, from food to gadgets to barbecues to tools to chickens to whatever. It's there. It was pretty amazing. And I was exhausted by the time I was done. I was determined to go up and down every single aisle to see every single thing in the market. And I got about 2/3 of that done. I said, enough of this. I gotta get out of here.
That is a moment. That is a moment. I think the energies of these places are so intense, aren't they? That it is very draining. And I think to be a market trader, you have to learn how to manage your energy like a Jedi, basically. Because I mean, what we're talking about here is this gets set up, doesn't it, every week? I mean, you'd have thought with human
every week
that they would have said to themselves, look, we create this market every week. Why don't we just make a market here? This is insane. We're here at 4 in the morning setting this up. We could make this
Sunday.
Sunday.
I walked past there Sunday to see where's it going to be, and it was empty except people were building their stalls already on Sunday.
On the Sunday. Well, they must make enough money, mustn't they? And it draws people from all over the north of Portugal, by the sound of it, and maybe from elsewhere as well. And here are the usual things that you will see at a Portuguese market. Always lots of cheap underwear. I've noticed, for men and for women.
Lots of socks, lots of shoes,
microphone covers if you ever need one, and all the food, all the food as well. Look at this, incredible. So
the pictures don't do it justice because they only capture a little tiny frame of this huge
you
place.
Don't you really?
Well, I have an activity app that I had on as I was walking, so because I knew it would trace my route, and then I actually took a photo of it and highlighted the actual location of the market on the maps. That's about as close as you can get, and even then it has to be so small to get the entire length of it in the picture. It's pretty incredible.
It looks like the grid of Espinho is American, doesn't it? Look at that. I mean, that's a very unusual looking town as well, isn't it, with that grid?
Yes, it's all perpendicular. And flat. It's a very unique location. I mean, it goes uphill as Portugal does, gradually from the east to the west. The closer you get to the ocean, it tends to flatten out near the ocean. Although many of the beaches are at the bottom of cliffs, so you have to actually hike down to get to the beach. Here, Espino, you just walk off the street onto the beach. It's flat. And every street is perpendicular and every street is numbered.
Incredible.
30, easy for me to say, 22. You know, like street 23 or 32, or it's just, yeah. So
and here
for
more pictures as well from Trip. It's got its own TripAdvisor. Oh my goodness, lots of food as well here. A smoker.
Yeah, you go into the plants, the area where there's house plants and food plants and all that. It's like a jungle. It's just trees and plants everywhere.
Look at it. There's some beautiful. What an incredible. Here we're getting a great. Oh, I don't know what that's about. A woman's leather boot and some furry handcuffs.
Boot and a flower and
that looks like a very nice evening to me.
Yes.
Starts with a massage and a lotus flower, ends with furry handcuffs.
And if that is a boot on a woman and she's passed out, then it must have been a great evening at the pub.
Oh my goodness, look at all those chickens. That is quite the array of chicken spits there, isn't it? Incredible.
Yes.
I don't know how much. I'm beginning to feel a little bit overwhelmed, even just looking at the pictures.
Just looking at the pictures, yes.
And this is what they're doing today, right there, isn't it? And there's some merciful cover from plane trees.
Oh yeah, lots of that, and it makes a ton of sense when you realize these people are there all day long till I don't know how late in the day. Like no one could stand that much sun.
Yeah, incredible household items, everything.
And while you're showing the visuals, another difference I noticed, because there are many tourists, many beach towns in Portugal. Ericeira, I had my first experience of the high season last season, and coming into it now, my experience then was it was probably a 50-50 mix of Portuguese and non-Portuguese tourists through Ericeira. So I heard lots of English in different foreign accents, or foreign to me, which is why I said last week I can spot an American accent 3 blocks away, because it's just we don't realize we have an accent that we recognize because we've grown up with it our whole life, that we can hear in a crowd of noise. We can hear American English being spoken, but also but also in Ericeira, you hear Scandinavian accents and Germanic accents and French accents. You hear lots of different accents speaking English. What I noticed in Espino, it got very, very crowded on the holiday, May 1st, but probably 90% of the tourists there were Portuguese, speaking Portuguese. I didn't hear hardly any English being spoken.
Probably coach trips, right? Because that's a really popular thing here in Portugal. People go traveling across Portugal, to go to other parts.
Or for the day, or whatever, but not people living in town. But because it got very crowded and then it emptied out. So weekend tourists basically, and that happens in Ericeira as well during I guess it's the low season, when non-tourist season. It will get very crowded on a sunny day, but it'll be mostly Portuguese people coming from other areas to come to the beach, which makes a ton of sense. But it was what was interesting to me was a unique experience of a large number of tourists being primarily Portuguese. Again, in our heads, we get this idea, tourists are from out of the country. It's like, no, we can be tourists in our own country as well. We just go places we don't go to often or have never been in our own country.
I think it's a very strong Sunday tradition in Portugal. In fact, I was driving to Caldas de Rainha from where we live here in São Martinho de Porto, and I passed a Panela bus, and it was like Câmara Panela. I think it was the town's own coach, created specifically to take the townspeople on tours to other parts of the country at the weekend, or the kids going on school trips or whatever. It's a lovely idea, isn't it? And and the same thing was happening at this gaming convention that we were at yesterday. People had come from all over Portugal for it. And aren't Portuguese people lucky? Let's face it. I mean, it was Óbidos, so that little town has people coming from all over the world, and it was fantastic. What an amazing place it is. And I wandered up into some of the lanes above it. It's such an incredible a historical and charming place, and an amazing
Yes.
backdrop for a gaming convention. But again, same, lots of global tourists and many Portuguese people who clearly come from all over the country as well. So yeah, you lucky Portuguese people, and thank you for letting us be here and enjoying it shoulder to shoulder with you. We will do our best not to be entitled expats. Do you see what I did
There we go. Nice segue.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, you mentioned last week of, perhaps we should have a part 2. And I made the comment, well, someone better take a note or we'll forget all about it. We didn't forget about it. I watched the replay and said, okay, I'll take a few notes, but it didn't go specifically to the you might be entitled if, because I felt like that one was pretty much done. But I think some of what we were talking about is maybe some of the things that went a little bit deeper. One of the things you mentioned was, I think particularly Nunu and Gilda making references to, well, in sort of an embarrassed way, well, that's Portugal, or that's the Portuguese way, and feeling somewhat apologetic about that. And I have heard them say that, and I always feel like, don't apologize. This is who you are. This is your country. This is your culture. This is the way things are here. The only reason you're hearing complaints about it is because of these freaking entitled people from other countries saying it should be different than the way it is, and that it's, it's too hard, or, just the attitudes. Granted, things could change. That's true of anywhere in the world you go. Things could change and make it better. But to feel apologetic about the country that you live in, your home, to me says more about the people coming into your home than how you keep your home. So I just wanted to add that into that.
Yes, well said. I think you're using this analogy, aren't you, of the home? If you're going in someone's house, you don't criticize it. And on the other side of that, yeah, Mrs. M's often doing this. Oh, sorry, we haven't tidied up. What she means by that is, sorry, we haven't tidied up for 12 hours, because we have busily, when anyone visits, we have been tidying up, especially, me and her, whilst the kids are lifting their feet up as we hoover underneath them, that sort of thing, trying to make the house look like it looks like all the time, when in fact it isn't how we live. That's such an interesting thing, isn't it? And I don't know, there must be a spectrum of people who say, you're going to have to take us as you find us. And I think you can get to that point as well, can't you? If you're busy, family life is an example. If someone's not feeling very well, whatever. But there is this thing, isn't there, of like wanting to show people how you live when they arrive, which isn't actually how you live when they arrive. Your house doesn't normally look like that. You've tidied it up specifically. And that might be, again, a national analogy, mightn't it? It's like, well, how about we just take you as we find you and we go from there?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a really big home. So it's kind of hard to,
a lot of rooms.
Keep it pristine 24/7. People are going to see it for what it is. It'd be kind of like having a visitor show up every 20 minutes unexpectedly. Like, oh, wait, let me get my underwear off the floor.
Or my
whatever. Or get the sock off my phone.
we're not over the last visitor just yet. In fact, they're still here wandering about in one of the other rooms. Yeah.
I can see that now, getting a text and pulling up a sock and going, oh.
we do get this. You're absolutely right. On a Thursday night, this is becoming a bit of a motif of the Dream Team panel, which I host on Thursdays over at Expats Portugal, and you'll see you'll recognize a lot of these people here. And the first two are Gilda and Nunu, and there is this sort of growing sense of apology, and resignation. That's the other part of it. There is the apology, but there's also the resignation.
And what are you going to do?
Yeah, but also the other evil. I mean, in the early days we never used to talk about it so candidly because we were all on best behavior, a bit like tidying up the house, and everyone knows you don't really live like that. But now it's much more like, yes. In fact, Nunu had this great list of things last Thursday about, I think it was like a poem. It was like, Seth hasn't got any appointments, but this is Portugal. IMT will exchange your license unless you're over 60. but this is Portugal. And it was, I think I've got to get it off him. So it's turning from apology, or we're on the cusp of apology, and now into resignation and welcome to our world. And that's what I really like about that, is that we are sharing the pain with our Portuguese. It's like, it's what we're realizing. It's not personal. They're not doing it to us. The authorities aren't doing it to us because we're incoming immigrants and foreigners. Everyone, their own country folk are dealing with this on a daily basis. So that helps in a strange sort of way.
Yeah, well, and it goes to some of the things I wanted to point out today about this entitlement thing. As I was thinking about it, entitlement, it's like, well, what is a quality of entitlement that is different than just a complaint or just an observation or even a constructive criticism? What is it that makes it entitlement? And the only thing that occurred to me was that entitlement lacks humility. There's a sense of, I am owed this because I am me.
Yes, yes.
And that's what entitlement is. It's like, it should be that way because I want it that way, which is a very egocentric position. And I believe entitlement is a highly egocentric attitude or way to be. So there's this lack of humility in it. And in a lack of humility, you don't tend to see the wake you leave behind. Yeah. It's like, you're running through, I was going to say bull in a china shop, except you're just walking through, knocking everything over, but you don't even look back and you don't realize you've done it. Yeah. That's entitlement. It's like, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just being me. I'm just, so I spoke my opinion. I said what I needed to say. It's like, well, take a look behind you. Look at the ruins you've left by virtue of this idea that you could fix everything just by being the marvelous you are. There's something about that in entitlement that just really annoys me. Clearly, I have an issue
Very
with
good
it.
Definition. Yeah, the marvelous when you are.
Yes. So bring that to, a country and then start talking about whatever you want to talk about. It's going to create well, it may or may not. The Portuguese people tend to be very polite around those things generally, but I don't want to be smiled to at my face and being thought of as a real asshole because I'm being entitled. It's like, no, I want to be authentic, transparent, me, which includes humility. It includes a degree of politeness and awareness of my surroundings and how I speak and when I speak. And I have a point to that too that is actually pretty close to what I want to say next. The first thing I say, if you don't want to be entitled or come off as being entitled, do a little homework. Educate yourself about the culture that you're visiting. If you understand the culture of Portugal, then you're not requiring the Portuguese to say, well, that's Portugal. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with this. I've heard about it. I understand that. So educating yourself about where you're going and not expecting it to be where you're leaving from, your home country, is huge in terms of not behaving in entitled ways. The question came, I think it was somewhat coming up with you, and I understand having a voice. Like I said, if you're not sure whether you should say it or not, don't. Yeah. I still stick to that. If you're not sure, then it's probably not going to be appropriate to say whatever it is you feel about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had that thought about, I wonder if I should say that. Yeah. So, unless you're absolutely certain or absolutely dedicated to saying something particularly that's critical, keep it to yourself. It's not necessary. Ultimately, it's how do we respectfully put forward the things that we think could be improved. And it reminded me of something that is frequently cited originally as a Sufi wisdom around speaking that just started with three things to consider, that has now been expanded into the word think. And before you say anything, consider these things is the wisdom that's being shared. So think, T, is it true? Is what I'm about to say true? H, is it helpful? I, typically they use inspiring. I'm a lot about intention. What's my intention in speaking here? Am I trying to put someone down? Am I trying to be better? Is this an ego thing? Is this an educational thing? What is my intention about what I'm about to say? Consider that before I speak. N is it necessary? I'm betting 90% of the time when we want to speak, it's not necessary. And then finally, the K is for, is it kind? And if we can say yes to all of those, then we know that it's appropriate to say what we want to say.
That's quite the process, isn't it? I mean, I do get it, and I do have an attenuating circumstance to put to you about this. But yes, I mean, that's great advice in life, anyway, isn't it? In any situation.
Yes, and it goes easily into think before you speak, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's my filter.
Yeah, yeah.
So that I think is great wisdom in general, speaking about anything, but particularly if we're in someone else's home, and we are. Gilda made that point about traveling and never really feeling like you ever fully become a person of that place because you're from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I understood that. I think that will be true for us. There will always be an aspect, no matter how welcome we are and how much we're loved by the Portuguese that we know, we've become friends and family with, that we did not originate here. And there may not be a place all the time for us to speak the same way about Portugal as the Portuguese speak about Portugal.
No question.
And to be able to accept that and say, all right,
I'm with you. Yep.
This is not for me.
I am so with you on that, and it was a recent and a somewhat poignant realization. First generation. I think our first generation, and remain so, and they are the building block. If their successors are to become integrated, they are like the foundation course of a building. And they are not. It's very unlikely. Given that a lot of us are some way through our lives already. We're not children growing up here, are we? So there will be that, and I think it's good to to have that as a realization. It's sobering and useful, I think, as well. Once you've got over the shock of it, perhaps. Yes.
Yes. Well, and I made the mention last week of never call a new parent's baby ugly.
Yes.
I think most people understand that. But the question, the concern, along with this think thing is, well, I went back to the same thing, actually, as I'm thinking about it. But it's like, how would you respond if that parent told you they thought their child was ugly?
Yes, that's putting the
How would you respond to that? Oh, yeah, that's the ugliest baby I ever saw. I'm so happy you said that. No. You're gonna say, oh, well, it's a sweet baby, or she laughs, or he smiles, or whatever that makes it cute. Or you're not going to jump right in and criticize that baby, even though the parent told you it's not a particularly good-looking baby.
I think we mentioned this last week, didn't we? That it can almost be a trick question. You're being invited. It's next level test of your entitlement. Is, will you fall for being invited to insult or criticize the culture? So again, you might want to run it through the same little template. Which incidentally, the ancient mariner is here. I don't think he's had 3 shredded wheat. I'll put it this way this morning. The comment section on this channel, Dead in the Water. Then, good morning to you, ancient mariner. GuMPer dust on you, James. The Think acronym was up on the refrigerator in one of the best and most effective organizations where I ever worked. I mean, they had a refrigerator for one thing. Yes, great stuff, and it's not an unhelpful, actually quite the opposite, a helpful and useful process to go through. And as I said,
yeah, and I'm not saying we have to do this every time we open our mouth, although it might be helpful.
It might make the queues even longer, though, James.
But especially when it's important, when you want to be heard, or when you really care and you're coming from compassion and love and you want to say something, it's a great filter to look at. And for me, what has caused me to not speak much more than I ever have in my life is I began to understand the dynamics of ego and its impact on me. Is the end part, is it necessary? Time and again, especially with my grown son, it's like he would tell me I was wrong on every point. He would give me facts and information he had that countered every point. He would correct me every chance he had, and I would jump in, which is my ego to defend. I just, I need to do this. I want to do this. And I began to understand, is this necessary? Do I have to say something here? Am I required? What's going to happen if I don't say something, if I don't respond to that? So I just became quieter and quieter because I realized just my ego jumping, defending my life as if my life depended on it. It's like, no, ego, this is not life-threatening. This is just the feeling of your identity being threatened. It's just a feeling. Let it go. So the necessary part, I mean, that's the kind part.
In the same realization that we might not be ever fully accepted. I mean, I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but or feel fully comfortable. I mean, the realization that most of what we think and say is probably unnecessary is quite a sobering one too. But it's also true, I think, isn't it? But it makes for a fun morning, as I think Ancient Aaron is pointing out. Yes. And Portugal, he hasn't thought about this, has he? He's just jumped straight in and wished everyone this morning, and we're glad of that. So, and bon dia to you, Lord Portuguese. But yes, this is the continued exploration of you're an entitled expat when. And I do want to film some of these, maybe with Andy Klein. I want to film some of these vignettes of people in cafes or at the front of a CEF queue, and we can have some fun with this, can't we? I think you're quite a good actor, aren't you, James? We could probably have some fun with these.
I'm more spontaneous, and people say, you're so funny. Tell us something, be funny. It's like,
yeah.
I play off what's going on around me. In my head it reacts, and I just say what's going on in my head. And very often it's funny because it's very strange. So
it throws people. Well, we can get Sue to help it. We'll do it like improv. We'll set up the scene and we'll run it like improv. Owen's here. I'll have everyone watching and listening from the vegetable plot this morning before it gets too warm. That's how a lot of farmers are right now. It's getting hot. And they're getting out early. We've got Benjamin Stubbs joining us. We've got the God Squad tips of the day are being rested this week, as is Coach Turner, from whom they emanate. And we'll be having a tip from Benjamin Stubbs, the author of the 30-Day Happiness Bootcamp. I don't know if you have much more to share from your list of thoughts on this, James. I did want to add something else, but I don't want to cut you off.
Well, just a couple, I think, fairly brief points. Speaking of what Gilda had said about never fully being of that new country, the thought did occur to me that we may earn a place that's deserved in that place.
Yeah.
If we behave non-entitled, as I've been talking about, people will come to respect us. They'll respect our opinion, and they will. And I go mostly to opinions about, the politics or the way things are done or whatever. It could be almost anything. But because we've established this relationship and we've demonstrated our capacity to be thoughtful in our approach to how we interact, we will be genuinely invited. People will say genuinely, James, what are your thoughts on this? I'd be curious, you've been here a long time, in that case, as long as you maintain that attitude of awareness, then absolutely you'll have the freedom to speak. But I think it's earned. I think it comes from relationship and trust, people knowing that you're someone worth listening to. So I would say that. And I already mentioned the last point, so I'm actually done. If when in doubt, don't speak out.
If in doubt,
if you're not sure, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if this was inspired by the theme of today of entitlement, but Bobby O'Reilly sent me a list this morning of interesting facts about the human race. And I don't know how much this has changed since it first started circulating on the internet. But I think the gist of it is helpful, if it's not entirely statistically accurate, because I don't know when it started, and with these sort of circulating memes, you're never really sure. But I think you'll get the point. 8 billion inhabitants of planet Earth. If presented in percentage terms, we can understand it in a more accessible dimension. Of this total, that is, of the 100% of the population, we have 11% of the world population in Europe, 5% in North America, 9% in South America, 15% in Africa, and 60% in Asia, apparently. 49% live in the countryside, 51 live in the cities. Now, you'd have thought, wouldn't you, that many more people are living in the cities now, but still, that's an interesting statistic, I think. 12% of them speak Chinese, 5% speak Spanish, 5% speak English, 3% speak Arabic. They obviously aren't talking about what people speak on the internet, are they? I don't think. 3% speak Arabic, 3% Hindi, 3% speak Bengali, 3% say Portuguese, 2% Russian,
And
2%.
I would say those are native languages, I'm
Well,
guessing.
62% speak their own native language of those 8 billion people. 77% of them have their own home. Get this, though, talking of entitlement and how lucky we are and how grateful we might be, 23% of the world's population have nowhere to live, apparently. 22% are supercharged. I don't know what that means. Do they have a car? Do they have electricity? 63% can eat one full meal and 15% are malnourished. They ate the last meal, but will not move on to the next. 87% have drinking water, 13% lack drinking water. And even though that water statistic is shocking and shouldn't be the case in this age, you could argue, 75% of the world's population have mobile phones. Is that right? Could that be right? 30% have internet. Yeah, 30% have internet access and 70% are unable to connect, which puts another dimension and complexion on things, doesn't it? 7% university education, 93% did not attend college. 83% now can read, 17% are illiterate. And we can return to this, but 33% are Christian, 22 Muslim, 14 Hindus, 7% Buddhist, 12 are other religions, and 12 have no religious beliefs. 8% of the world's population are over 65 years of age. So if you have your own home, eat full daily meals and drink clean water, have a cell phone, can surf the internet and manage to go to college, you're in a tiny group of privileged people who represent less than 7% of the entire world population. Under current conditions, out of every 100 people on the planet, only 8 can live or exceed 65 years. We are indeed very lucky, are we not, James?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had a thought that it flew right through as you said that, but the statistic that really stuck with me, that actually made me happy, is 80%, if I got that right, can read.
I think it was a little bit more than that. It was 83% can read.
83%. That's huge.
Yeah, it
is.
is.
Especially when you consider the value of being able to inform oneself and understand and experience all the things that can be experienced from reading. Now, I understand that's not, genius level reading capacity, but just to be able to read is
to connect.
Good on the world for taking care of that. The literacy thing is important.
Indeed. So there you go. I thought you might like it that to see that in the context of being an entitled expat, people can relax a little bit, can't they? And for one thing, realize that I know you are certainly a big fan of being grateful and consciously being grateful, as is our next guest. He is the author of the 30-Day Happiness Bootcamp, the Beginner's Guide. Let's give him a nice big round of applause. He is the Benjamin Stubbs. Good morning to you, Ben. How are you?
Good morning. Well, lovely welcome in the sense of them statistics as well.
Yeah,
because obviously I was in backstage in the green room listening in. But yeah,
is your room green?
Actually, it was plain grey, I think.
Take no notice. That's not a cowboy hat either.
Over there.
Yeah.
But welcome.
Not
lovely
a cowboy hat.
Lovely to see you here, Benjamin. You
Yes,
are the
you too,
author
Benjamin.
of the 30-Day Bootcamp. I'm going to stick it up on the screen. And I think one of the previous times we spoke, I bought it online, live. I've got all my addresses showing as well here now. Let me just every time I do something here, I'm giving away loads of personal details, aren't I? I bought the book live when I was on last time and gave all my banking details on the screen. So that's probably a way that it's not going to allow anything to get away that shouldn't. But here we go. That's not very good. Let's just go with that.
That's actually, it's updated recently. So now it shows you the first few pages. Because I think after about 2-3 weeks, it must update the algorithm so you can actually open the book and start to read it, I think.
most important thing is for me to put the link to the book on the screen, and I will do that while we're talking. How's it going? You've been on sale for what, a couple of weeks now?
Yeah, it's gone really good. I just enjoy it. Like, I did a book launch locally a couple of weeks ago, and I've got the next one in a couple of weeks. And yeah, just really enjoying pushing it. Like, the thing is, going back to obviously the conversation I kind of came in on, the idea of gratitude, and it's just giving people some like smack in the middle. It gives people just wow.
Okay.
The thing is, because the kind of stats you were saying were it's so interesting to hear, because the biggest thing, I'm the same thing. I'm a big advocate of gratitude, but what I've realised is the only problem with gratitude, unless you've got to train in. There was a study done with the University of California that was fascinating. They said gratitude's got to be trained, and that's why some people get that gratitude guilt, and they know they should be more grateful, but they're not. Yes. And then I have clients that will say like, and then they get mad at not me, at themselves, but kind of like, I know I should be more grateful. And it's just because we're not trained, and that's something I want to just kind of come in with, in the sense of after that is, I know we should be grateful, but if you feel like you're not, or you feel mad at yourself for not being, it's just because we've not trained ourselves to be. Yeah, like, if I said, like, a lot of the clients, I'm working with a lot of students at the moment, but if I said to them, give me 5 things you hate, they could reel them off. Every class I say, give me 5 things you like, they really struggle. Or 5 things you're grateful for. And that's it. We've just got to be more, we just got to train ourselves and be open to be more grateful. And that's what the book's about, really. That's why I've put the beginner's class, was giving some step-by-step guide to start to train your brain to be more optimistic, to be more thankful. It's not going to win awards for new information, so I put that in there. Don't even give me a grotty 1-star saying, oh, this is all information. Because I know it is. It's just, I've condensed it, cleaned it up, packaged it as like a kind of gym class, as a bit of fun. And,
with a daily schedule.
Pardon?
With a daily schedule. Like, it's not just do these things. Like, here, if you really want to do it, try do this today, and this tomorrow. Then the people, they get the structure, and that makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the idea is people, I think, I want to give people just a taster, a bit like a buffet of just things that they might find that might just make them a little bit happier, and just some little viewpoints they could just drop some angst towards certain aspects of their life, and just feel better. Because when you always tag me as a happiness coach, I always feel this absolute pressure that people are going to be like, make me happy. But it's just small things, it's small steps, isn't it? It's just training ourselves to let go of things that are making us unhappy. And I think someone said in the last time I was on, happiness is a contentment, and I think that's probably more truth. It's more dropping the expectations that make us unhappy. You know,
I've said happiness is overrated. I don't think that's really what we're looking for when we say we want to be happy. And what you mentioned before is the contentment, the satisfaction. What we're striving for is a life well lived. I think that's really what we're chasing, and we can't just find that on the top of a hill somewhere. We have to build it.
Yeah, well said. And we've got to start the conversation somewhere. I'm sorry I called you a happiness coach, and there is this.
Oh no, it wasn't. It's just that the word is perfect, like what we were saying before. The happiness is so loaded in its wording and in its meaning. But like we said,
it's the same. Every difficult issue. I was thinking this yesterday. Every difficult issue for human beings is because they're not agreeing on what they mean about the thing they're talking about, and they start talking about it before they've agreed. It's like religion, isn't it? You talk about religion. It would be really sensible, wouldn't it, for anyone who's about to have an argument about religion, politics, sex, happiness, to say, what do you mean by that? And obviously that takes time, and it can be a bit boring to establish the terms, but it's really helpful. It can take a lot of the pain out of things later on, and it can be an interesting conversation in its own right, kind of. So what do you mean about religion? Well, what do you put first in life? Why don't we use that as a definition of religion? The thing that always comes to mind, or you think about first in your life. How about if we use that and we have a conversation about religion like that? And happiness. I love your definition, by the way, Benjamin. It's mine that I've sort of worked with. Basically, is the absence of unhappiness. Get rid of all the baggage and the drag in your life if you possibly can, and we often can, and would rather not. We'd rather be doing mantras or gratitude journals than addressing something that makes us unhappy. That to me is a fantastic definition. And so yeah, I totally get it. We can get lost in the long distance before we define or understand what each other means with these things.
Well, I have a theory I've spoken to before, that the things that seem to stick and that are really hard, and I say this because the people have that sort of guilt about it, I should be more grateful.
Yeah.
I don't think that's as built into our DNA as our readiness for things to go wrong or to be bad. And to me, that's all about survival. If we sat being satisfied with our lives, everything is good, most of us would have died before we became any kind of a species. We had to be aware that needs work and that needs work, and I can't be okay with this because that's not done. That's part of our DNA, I believe. So it's deep within us. So to change it takes, as Benjamin was saying, real intention, real practice, and to have something to do every day to work that, to change it, is important.
Yeah, well said.
I think as well, everything's a balance, isn't it? I think because you either have this thing where you think, oh, you've got to be Zen and you're a kind of mindset coach, you've got to be happy all the time, and then like you said, but then people think that I'm just really a pushover. And actually, since I've been more in tune with my feelings and where I'm putting my focus, and more in tune with my kind of happiness, unquote, the more awkward conversations I've had, because, like you said, James, I need, some things need to be done, some things need to be said, and some things need to be, and I think that's where I've become more. I don't really like having awkward conversations with people or situations that I don't particularly want to go into, but I'm more at peace with doing them because sometimes they need to be done. It's a balance, really, isn't it? And I think the perfect analogy is people put the word happy, but what they really want to be is not unhappy. And I think it's that flip. No one really defines what happiness is. I think it's just people know they should feel better than what they are. I think that's probably the key. And it's that not feeling as good as they think they know they should is that strive for happiness.
Well, that would be quite a good thing to let go of, wouldn't it? Talking about letting go of things. And I love that. Awkward conversations are so powerful, aren't they? And I think many of us know how powerful they can be as much as they are awkward. Now, lucky for everyone, you are here filling the big trainers. And you know what they say about big trainers of Coach Turner, who's having a rest this week from the God Squad tips of the day. He is more of the physical, athletic coach kind of guy, and has been giving us an incredible amount of information and content about staying well and healthy in our bodies over the last couple of years, I think it is now, Coach Turner. So thank you for that. And they are the gentle fitness techniques for the bon viveurs, growing old disgracefully, obviously, as the name suggests. Now, you're stepping in this week to help us. And I think probably for the next, you have a routine, don't you, as the word bootcamp suggests in the title. And you're going to be with us with a suggestion to use this week and for the next 3 weeks thereafter.
Yes, I'm going to bob in and give you a little bits of tips. So hopefully I'll step in well to Coach Turner's shoes. I've got quite relatively small shoes, really. I'm only size 9. My nephews are bigger than me. They're 11. Yeah,
9 is massive.
What about feet here, Carl?
Okay.
My nephew's 11 and he's got bigger feet than me, which is
goodness. Maybe feet are getting bigger in this.
The population and the size of the feet. I know there's a relationship somehow, but the feet seem to just be getting bigger and bigger.
It didn't come up in our list of stats, but anyway, you are filling the big trainers of Coach Turner. And so what have you got for us today? What are we kicking off with?
Well, the first one for this week is obviously we discussed off air on what could give tips just so people could just implement, a bit like the book, really. But one of them is just smiling for no reason. And you might just say well, how to do that? And there's more muscles to not smile than it is to smile. And I'm not saying walk around, town
Why not? Why not?
Carl, if you want to and it makes you feel good, then you crack on, Cocker.
People will laugh.
But there's so much evidence, and I'm sure James knows as well, of just how smiling just releases, serotonin, some nice, endorphins, some nice, good feeling. So find a natural pose this week of defaulting to a natural smile. So it could be, oh God, this is so awkward, but something like, just rather than, really patronizing, condescending kind of explanation there. But what they're proving is just try smiling naturally for no reason. They found that a lot of people's energy lifts and their mood lifts just by smiling. So in some ways, you're not waiting for the reflection to change. You are changing the reflection. And it's just a little tip for this week is to smile as much as you can for no reason.
I love that. I love that. And
change your face, change your mind.
And
Yeah.
we'll be checking.
It's all connected, isn't it? So whether you do
it is absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know which it was, Ant and or Dec, and no one ever really knows today, if they're honest. But one of them was at the not the royal wedding, the royal coronation at the weekend, and he was smiling to himself for no apparent reason. If you can see that clip, he is our tutor of the week in an inadvertent way. So there we go. Smile for no reason, and that again, of course, would be a good definition of joy, isn't it? Is happiness without a reason. So smiling without a reason is our homework for the week.
But going back to the kind of default of, we're saying, let's kind of simplify that happiness is the lack of unhappiness. And actually, when we start to let go of these little things, I think it's that feeling that we're all trying to describe is just that contentment, that ease, that, and of course that might mean an exciting night out. It might mean a good party, but it might just mean looking at the sunset. Like I get absolute joy from watching the sunset, and since letting go of a lot of the things that make me unhappy, my attachment to others, my expectation of others, my expectation of my life, dropping things I can't control, just lots of kind of like sorting out my kind of inner baggage, just the simpler things just feel better. And I'm more satisfied by the simpler things as well. And I think that is, encapsulating the happiness thing again.
You flipping legend. Now, I'm used to someone joining us at past, and Anna was going to join us today. She can't. We're going to ease into the Iberian FM phone in. James, you're very welcome to stay with us, or not, as the case may be. I know you're only scheduled and maybe expecting to be here until.
I actually have an appointment coming up, so I will have to leave.
All right. Well, here's just very quickly. Here's Anna's immersion experience. I was hoping she'd be here to tell us about it. She'll be back in this slot next month. But this was the launch of our Portuguese immersion experience cooking class yesterday. Biocultural bar. We mingled with Portuguese, learned some vocab, overcame our fear of speaking. Yay! Learned how to cook some great dishes and enjoyed each other's company. Who's interested in the next edition? So check in with Anna for that. You're going to be staying with me now, Benjamin, for the next bit. And we'll take this with us into the next section because we've got a phone-in style. If anybody wants to talk about, actually, what I was hoping to talk about were the books. Which self-help book helped you the most? Because you and I can have a great conversation about that at the very least. And we can take also this comment that's come in from Pete. I didn't know about this, Pete. Really interesting, says Pete, what is happening in Russia at the moment with all the self-help gurus being arrested and imprisoned. Didn't know about that. A popular move amongst the public, but the government had previously backed it. Didn't know about that, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes' time. After we look, talking of big feet, it's always the little things that make the difference, says Portugal there. And just to clarify something, when Benjamin said to me, "You crack on, Cocker," that meant go ahead, as a delightful Northern English turn of phrase there.
Sorry, I will come with subtitles next week.
Yes, if you don't mind, that would be great. And this is, please do the homework, everybody, of smiling for no particular reason. This will help. When you were saying do a smile like this, I was thinking do a smile, do a smile as though you have done a smell. You know that. So,
full circle, Carl. Full circle.
This program isn't just thrown together. What do you?
Well done. Well done.
What do you call someone who refuses to fart in public? A private tutor. You see, be that private tutor with that enigmatic smile on your face, especially in a lift. My wife told me she'll slam. This is going to help you with your smiling for the rest of the week. Just remember one of these. My wife told me she'll slam my head on the keyboard if I don't get off the computer. I'm not too worried. I think she's. That's very visual.
That was good. Yes.
Here's a psychotherapy one. This is great. This would, if you do some psychotherapy again, James, you can try this with clients. If you're feeling depressed, try drinking a gallon of water before you go to sleep. It'll give you a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Or all night.
I like that. I don't know about anybody else. James, great job. Lovely hanging out and talking with you. And it's not a cowboy hat.
If you take anything away from today's show, just take that one thing. That'll be great.
It's not a Would you like to leave another thing? Would you like to posit something else? And it's always good to have a final word from you.
I always look in the moment. I've just really enjoyed being on screen with you, Benjamin. I think you and I have very similar ideas about how humans function. And I think all that we've got is probably mostly common sense to our community, which makes me feel really good about who we are and what we can be as a species. We're all capable of this. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, bless you, James. We'll see you next week, my friend. Take care and bye for now.
Ciao, ciao.
We'll be right back after this. Cool, it's like a barefoot broadcast, isn't it? With those beats in the background.
No, that's the first time I've been for this second half. So I'm like grooving away.
Yeah,
Like,
good for you. And of course, we should mention my guest here. If you're watching the Iberian FM phone-in segment, this is Benjamin Stubbs, who's with us, the author of the 30-day Happiness Bootcamp, the Beginner's Guide, or the Beginner's Edition. More will follow. I see what you did there. The homework this week that he's given us on the Good Morning Portugal show is to smile for no reason. For much of the rest of the week, we're getting feedback about that already. Sunrise is beautiful out here. Just sent you a little video, Carl. So we'll play that towards the end of the segment this week. Thanks for that, Pete. And smiling in Portugal always has a reason, as everyone always has, or always beams a massive smile right back at you. Yeah, smiley culture for sure. Benjamin's here. Can take your calls. I'll just open up the phone line on 913-590-303. I hadn't heard anything about this Russian business of the gurus, the self-help gurus being arrested in prison. Do you know anything about that, Benjamin?
no, because I've said before that I try and limit what I hear and read. I try to have the basic information and try to do my own research. But sometimes I get a bit lost with rabbit holes, etc. So I honestly, so I haven't heard about that at all. It wouldn't surprise me, but I just see the bigger picture. Like I always think, with it's this famous quote from Jurassic Park of all things. When it's where the dinosaurs start to multiply and they're not meant to, because they're meant to be the same sex. And then it's one of the, I can't remember his character now. Jeff Goldblum said, nature always finds a way. And I always feel that every time things try to get snuffed out, the human race fights back. So and it always happens. So I feel that I'm not trying to trivialize what's going on over there.
No, and it could be propaganda.
Sometimes you try and snuff it, but it never really gets snuffed.
Yes, and if you were anti-Russia, it would be a great thing to say, wouldn't it? And I think it's interesting. I mean, the main meat of our edition this morning on the Iberian FM phone-in is to talk about which books, self-help books, have made an impression. And if it is, let's say it is true that certain authors and books are being banned in Russia, it kind of proves in a way, doesn't it, how powerful self-help books can be. So for you, Benjamin, you are the as we see on the screen there, you're the creator of the 30-day Happiness Bootcamp, the beginner's class there. You are a self-help book writer yourself, and it's not your first one either. Which are the ones that came before that inspired you to change your life and to start writing yourself?
Well, if you think about it, one of the biggest self-help books, and I know it's quite controversial in its beliefs, but let's just talk about The Secret, which is probably the biggest one.
Yes.
But going back to kind of links perfectly to you kind of in my segment about what's happening in Russia and the idea of The Secret, or what's written, the premise behind it is when she wrote it, she discovered a lot of information was out there, but had been kept from the public. The idea of, the control we have in our lives, control of our minds, what we put out there, all the things we kind of know, what kind of, some people call it karma, but what you put out, you get back. But then what they found is a lot of secret societies and everything knew it and kept it quiet because they didn't want the masses to know. And the idea of The Secret was she wanted to share the secret of how to create your life and how to change your life. So again, the premise of that book aside, that's kind of backing up the fact that a lot of people don't like the masses knowing that we've got, the power we've got. The energy we've got inside, the control we've got about our minds, and we're kind of that's not been given us. We've had to kind of scrabble amongst ourselves. But what I find fascinating about the future, and So what James said, for me, I've got a lot of hope for the future because I've taught in a college for many years. So I've taught a lot of youth for like 10 years and they are coming through. They know what's going on. They're not stupid. They don't believe the news and the dogma that's given them. So it's only a matter of time and things are changing. So I wish they'd change a bit faster because I'm eager and excited. But that book is good because it kind of sums up what you were saying, that, you know, that's going on in Russia. People are trying to kind of suppress this information, but it's not going to work. It's already out there, isn't it? So,
well, it is, and you could take a complementary political ideological view as well, couldn't you? That even in what are seen as the most democratic and free societies, let's call them sort of the neoliberal societies, where consumerism could be the religion or the way of life. That could also be seen as a conspiracy against people's true happiness, couldn't it? As can be observed in many a meme.
Yeah, you're right. But I also think this is what I've always had this question about the news and the media and this kind of capitalism and all the famous buzzwords, which is true. There's a lot of, obviously, I'm not here to kind of defend it all, but what I'm saying is we have to take some responsibility as a collective to be aware of what we're doing, because the newspapers only, we can say, oh, the newspapers only print negative stuff because we only buy it when it's negative. We only click on it when it's got some stupid clickbait about shocking this, and you look at it and it's the most unshocking thing ever. So yes, I've clicked on it, but it's only if it's something I'm interested in, like Strictly Come Dancing, like, or, you know, but what I'm saying is we've got to take responsibility for that. So the newspapers will stop printing negative stuff if we stop buying it. So we've got, I think everything, like, I always think it comes back to me. Going back to the previous segment about happiness, there's only so much I can control. I've got opinions, like I'm sure we agree on many things, Carl, but I'm thinking, what control have I got in this moment over certain things? And I'm thinking that is, for me, what I'm doing when I look out in the world, you know, what you said, capitalism and the way life is. We've chosen that. Until we choose not to choose that, then it's going to keep going. Well does it help? Of course. Is it set up for us to stay in the loop? Yes. But through our own knowledge, we've got to start to question as a society and a collective, what is this making us happy?
And most importantly, individually, right? Because I think it can only be done on an individual basis. Yeah. Hence the positive part of self-help books. Now, I think the point Pete was actually making was the gurus I'm talking about, the scam artists who prey on the most vulnerable, like, I don't know who this is, Blinyovskaya. If you look her up, the public love the fact that they were finally arrested, but Putin had previously funded her. Now, this is very interesting to me. If you look up Letchek and Blinovskaya, you will see what I'm talking about. I had no idea about that, Pete. Oh, Katya's here. Katya Lima, bon dia, a bit late today. You're very welcome here. What's your favorite self-help book, Katya Lima? What I'm picking out from here is scam artists preying on the most vulnerable. Now, this is a criticism of self-help books. And of course, you mentioned The Secret. And the Secret was pulled into this very same area, wasn't it? Of like some of us saying that others are vulnerable and are being preyed upon by con artists and scam artists, which of course that does happen. But I'm fascinated by that dynamic because it's another one of those conversations that's about out there rather than taking responsibility for what's going on in here, because ultimately that's the only thing we can really take responsibility for.
I think with everything, there's scam bankers, there's dodgy police, there's every area. There's some people that let it down. There's some charlatans in every region.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So we can say whatever. We can say in back. There's always going to be a few that take advantage of, quote, the vulnerable, unquote, you know, in that sense. So of course there's going to be gurus that know that by saying this 30-day, there's me. But you know, like, buy this package is going to change your life. Now, I haven't promised that. I've just said, look, guys, if I can ethos of my book is, look, if you don't know where to start, just try this. Yeah. It might not be then. It might not fix you. It might not be everything you're after, but it might give you a starting point. But I think it's when sometimes people have bought this kind of, this 30-day, £1,000, it would change your life, but then you have to sign up every month. You can see where people would slowly might lose themselves. But I think, like you said, it's going back to our own power. And I think for me, it's all about our own, taking our own decisions and finding our own truths. And I think that's happening. Yeah. All that's happened in society in the past 50 years is we've gone from no information or limited information from the odd newspapers or the odd news to having everything. So, of course, we've gone from like this to like swing to full information where there is fake news, there is, charlatans. And I think we'll just learn over the next 20, 30 years discernment, where we'll be like, right, okay, and everything we read is true then. I think people
good
still
word.
have that.
Good word, discernment. Absolutely right. And you know, I'm very, you know, of course, one of the realizations I've had is that you know, you can take anything and you can find a good or a bad aspect about it from an ideological point of view, and that's why people argue all day long about stuff, isn't it? And to me, it's to do with the out there, not the inner experience. And so much of the world, of course, and our conceptualization of it is out there, talking about ideas out there, talking about those other people out there. The real joy, I think, what you're talking about essentially of becoming less unhappy, i.e., more happy, is about the inner orientation, and that's perhaps another thing that we're growing to embrace, along with this process of discernment and other skills that we're picking up as a species, perhaps, or remembering, if not developing.
Perfect word is remembering. We're remembering how we really are. Going back to obviously the theme of the thing, which is your favorite self-help books. An author I really like is Joe Dispenza, because he links science with kind of spirituality and pushing the boundaries of what our brains can actually achieve. So his studies on brain scans, on meditations, on positivity, on its law of attraction, whatever, all the different things, he's starting to prove through evidence, and he's getting universities coming in, that it's quite deep for kind of 10 o'clock on a Monday morning.
I'm all for it.
But we're creating our reality by what we're putting out there. Because, you know, you've seen many studies about plants that have been talked to positively, negatively, and the plants that we've talked to positively grew more. Same with the water experiment, same with rice. This isn't just some sort of woo-woo. They're starting to realize there's some sort of energy around us. Say, for example, our aura, you know, that people know we've got an aura. You can feel it when someone's in you. So if you start them basic premises, there is some sort of energetic thing going on around our bodies and with us, then it makes sense that we can feel that, you know. So for me, Joe Dispenza really helped me open my mind, because I wanted to know the science behind it, but I also knew there was something more, and he kind of links the two together. So that's helped me, and that's what brings me always back to me. What can I do? I can't control what's going on in Russia myself at the moment. I can't control what's going on with the government at the moment. Now, yes, anger has got its place and purpose. Of course, as like we discussed this the other week. But I don't want to be angry all the time. Do you know what I mean? Because that achieves nothing, you know, and I'm depleting my own energy, depleting my own family life, and depleting what I've got to offer. So I've realized that, you know, I've got opinions about stuff, but I don't get as emotional about it. And I will make my votes in certain points and make my opinions at certain points. But what I realized from this book was my energy that I'm sending out. And I've got so much more to give myself, my friends, my family, and to make this world a better place, which is what we all want, by not focusing on that as much. Be aware, be informed but not inundated, and then putting my energy in what I want to create. It'd be like if you got a new file and then you save on top of the old one. It says, do you want to overwrite? I'm like, yeah. I think that's what I want to do. I want to overwrite my old stuff with what I want. That makes sense. Rather than just complaining about the old stuff, like what do I want and where are we going? And Joe Dispenza's great for that. I'd recommend his books.
Okay, so The Secret and Joe Dispenza, as if you're looking for inspiration for self-help books. Pete, continuing with this theme, feel free to call in, you, Pete, or anybody, 913-590-303. Happy to take a call on your favorite self-help book. How did it help you? And of course, you know, it's a matter of debate on one level, whether or not self-help books are a good idea. What I'm interested in is ownership. That was something I forgot to talk about with James this morning, is owning things. And, you know, there's the opinion level, isn't it, of are self-help books good or bad? And you can talk all day long about your ideas and opinions on that. But what I'm more interested in is which books have genuinely helped you and why. You know, what's been owned, what's been realized, what's been seen with the choice of a good book. For what it's worth, my favorite, my enduring, two actually. One is How to Stop Thinking. And it works so well. I can't remember the author, and I don't know where it is at the moment. So How to Stop Thinking is a fantastic book. No, The Way of No Thinking. See, I'm putting it into practice.
The book's done its job.
Absolutely, it's destroyed my mind such that I don't know where the book is, who wrote it, or what even the title is. And the other one is Ridding Yourself of Unhappiness, which is my great lifelong favorite author and spiritual teacher, Barry Long. Very, very, always happy to. You can see the smile on my face, can't you? And how it warms my heart. On the other hand, Russia, and people are being a little bit reluctant in sharing their favorite self-help books with us this morning. Russia is a bit unique in terms of the lack of control that people have over their own lives, which leaves them open to people that promise what is in fact impossible for them. So interesting, Pete. Now, from what Benjamin was saying earlier on, and you go on to talk about psyops and so on. Again, the things that we never used to talk about years ago that seem to be perfect, very on the near mainstream agenda now. What are they? Black swans and false flags and psyops and so on. But everyone seems to know about this stuff now, don't they? A lot of people do. What does knowing about this contribute to you, Pete? That's what I'm interested in. It's what you've brought to us into the conversation this morning. But I'm going to make a very sort of bold statement here that it doesn't really matter, does it, what's going on in Russia at the moment? And does knowing that, given the context of our conversation this morning, it is about human happiness, does it make you happier or less happy to know that this is going on? What I'm hearing, and I'm making a big guess here, is your compassion, is that you don't like to think of vulnerable people in an oppressive regime being taken advantage of. So you're quite glad to hear of it being stamped out. That's the juice, as far as I can tell. But what does it add to your happiness to know about this, to share about this? Because we're not very good, generally speaking, as I think you pointed out earlier on, Benjamin, with this sort of stuff. And we don't look for the good and praise it. We're not necessarily thinking about what makes us grateful and looking at sunsets. We are quite easily distracted by things that make us feel wretched.
But going back to what James said, it was perfect. And this is what we said. Our brain, we're naturally wired to look for negative on some basic core level because of, like looking out for something to be aware of, or some fear or some threat to us. So that is there. And that's where we've got to be aware of our pros and cons as humans, but then once we're aware of that, then it's a conscious choice to do that. And so there's no judgment in this. And like I said, I'm not here to say we should look at sunsets all the time and not know what's going on, because without information, we're not informed. But all I'd say is that it's a balance of being informed, but once you find yourself emotionally irate or emotionally tainted by this, tainting your life and your family life and who you are, then who's winning? Because the people this is not to Peter, by the way, I'm speaking generally, but the people that you're feeling for aren't getting any benefit from your feeling. So do you know what I mean? So it's more that it's find that balance of being aware and obviously having human compassion. We've got another guest.
I'm trying to listen, but I'm being massively distracted by this little rascal who's coming, who loves seeing himself, smiling back at himself. This is what the homework is, isn't it? About smiling for no reason.
But kids are our greatest teachers. Kids are our greatest teachers. They're non-judgmental. They have fun. They smile. They don't need much.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a teacher who just walked into the screen for us there, right?
You know what? The universe works in funny ways. And isn't that the case? But are we just taking too much of this? Like, are we, with this wealth of information and wealth of knowledge, are we then getting inundated with all the crap that's going on around the world? But in the whole scheme of things, most people in the world get on. If you're looking in most communities, if you walk around in your community now, are most people fighting and scrapping and hating? No. Most people are loving. Most people are kind. Most people will do something about it. But what we do is we just look for little nuggets of stuff to kind of, and then we're drawn in by our human nature. And then we just lose that power. And going back to what I said about Joe Dispenza, that's basically what he's saying. That if we lose our inner power to make the change we want to change by looking at what we don't want all the time, we need to start focusing on what we want to create. Be aware, try not to get as emotional about it, but then focus on where we want the world to be. And there's so many good things going on. I'm not here as our famous Pollyanna, but what I'm saying is there are so many decent people. There's so many amazing things going on. And shouldn't we be celebrating that? Be aware, but celebrating that. But we don't. We quite like looking and delving and rabbit holing. And what does it achieve?
Rabbit holing. Yeah, I hope it's a phase we're going through, quite frankly.
It's just this, Carl. We've just gone from no information to knowing everything. And then you want to know, and then you can find anything on YouTube. And then how many things do we think were going to happen, didn't happen? And then people then, so this is going to happen, and it didn't. And then it's just find that balance. I think eventually we'll get discernment where we're just like,
well, actually, and also, you can also find that balance at any time of the. You're talking culturally, societally, aren't you? Any individual can find. To be honest,
on any level, we are just because now we've got all this information on anything, on food, on drink, on mindset, on news. it's just finding that our own discernment, our own balance of what works for us.
Yeah.
And what we believe and what we don't believe. And the thing is, once we find out the stuff, we can find out what's going on around the world in depth. And then we obviously we're naturally curious, but then before you know it, it's ebbed away our inner happiness, because we're just depressed by what's going on all around the world. But they're just tiny pockets of things that in a plethora, there's so much goodness going on. There is stuff going on.
I'm going to make another very bold assertion here. But I'm not going to do it just yet. It's about, I'll come back to that, because I want to include and invite anyone who wants to call in to talk about it. 913-590-303 if you'd like to do that. The line is open. Katia has suggested a book, or is mentioning a book that was helpful to her. Not a self-help book, strictly speaking, but by the sound of it, it helped you. So on that basis, let's call it a self-help book. But a friend suggested it to me some time ago, The Healer's Prophecy by Herman Horach Mamani. It helped me to see several things from a different perspective. Now, isn't that telling? And it would be a long reply to go into any more detail than that by the sound of it. But isn't that a great thing? Anything that helps you see things from a different perspective is a wonderful thing. And again, by using the phrase self-help book, of course, that is such a coverall that would include books that have been massively exploitative or used in an exploitative way. It's a very broad brushstroke. But I was just interested to know what people have been inspired by, such that they share that as well. So, of course, these things, like anything, can be used for positive or for ill. And I would refuse to say that they are just en masse a good or a bad thing. Tell us what is good about them from your own personal experience. I love Russia, says Pete, and would love to go back and enjoy taking an interest in what is happening there. Didn't know you spent time there. Hey, is he a spy, do you think? I suppose it is also interesting in terms of how the government backed and then dumped them for financial expediency. My understanding of Russian politics, or the way that Putin works, is that he funds everything, the opposition, and that was one of those great Adam Curtis documentaries I think about. What was it called? Hyperreality. Really good stuff. It also appears to be somewhat of a trend globally. What is that? Financing everybody or banning self-help? Some self-help speakers. Right. What I was going to say that I think is quite controversial, Benjamin, is that this discernment you talk about is actually an intelligence test. Managing to keep oneself joyous, free of unhappiness, is the ultimate intelligence test. And if you slip away from what we might describe as our birthright and our natural state, you have in some way done that to yourself as an injury. What do you reckon?
Yeah, but I think we've got to be a bit. Yeah, it's a very bold statement, and I think at the core of it, there's a lot of it that's truth. But I think it's more we've got to be softer in the sense of this, because we've been trained not to be this way. We've been trained. Society. Oh, I hate the word society. But just so many avenues pushed on us to be the way we are. Yes. So to even start to break through that when we've had like mainstream media telling us the opposite all our lives, it's great. So I'm really pleased people are starting to see it. But it's just. It's just finding that kind of balance, and people will find that balance. And it's okay to be unhappy. That's the thing. You don't want if I said to you, the good old famous one, if I said to you, Carl, now do not think of a pink elephant. Don't think of one. Don't think of one. You've thought, see you later. It's done. So we are where we are. And it's about softening where we are, but just realizing, because a lot of people don't know where, like, again, going back to the book, but the softening where we are and giving people the kind of, that's why. Oh, yeah, I do naturally do that. I do naturally go to the news when I come in. I don't need to. I do naturally look for negative stuff. I did that. It's just giving people the awareness. And then in time, they'll realize that feels better. But it's funny, who came on say hello in the background? I couldn't quite see him. I just saw a hand on his side.
Little soul, yeah. The ray of sunshine.
So, well, children are one of our biggest teachers. I know they have to go through the things we do, but they let things go. They express their emotions. They do what they want to do when they want to do it. They tell you how they feel. They have fun. They're non-judgmental. We kind of lose them aspects, that kind of childhood innocence as we get older. But I think that's why we love fancy dress. We love getting drunk, because it gives us chance to act like children again. But really, that's what we're kind of after.
One more thing before you go. This is the delicious conundrum of all this talk, isn't it? Is that you were saying it's okay to be unhappy, and I want to say it's not, because unhappiness hurts. But I get your point at the same time. This is the great, if you like, spiritual cosmic consciousness conversation, isn't it? Because it cannot be dealt with on an ideological binary basis.
No.
Happiness is neither good nor bad ultimately, but we do know from our own conscious experience that it isn't fun to be unhappy. Nobody really wants to be unhappy, do they? But therein lies the beautiful, what the motor of life itself, that if we are experiencing unhappiness, it's feedback, isn't it? It's feedback, and it needn't be seen as good or bad, more possibly as a motivator.
Well, if we see it as the point, we have people put sandwich boards on every day. So our sandwich board, we put it on, and that sandwich board is our name, my name, and on that sandwich board, there's some big things that are very potent. So maybe your religious beliefs, your football team you like, and certain things are smaller. So we wear this personality sandwich board every day. So if someone's been the way they are, and obviously you kind of want to make this kind of talk show to kind of uplift and share knowledge, etc. So when people wear this, if we go in and be like, come on, unhappy's wrong, come on, get happy.
Yeah.
We feel it as a defense. We get defensive about it. So what I've realized with it is if we're too harsh on unhappiness, then people get, because that's where they're at. And I just realized the softer approach. So, do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's okay to be where you are, but there is other options. Because then it's softer. It's same with politics. When you go on Facebook and there's a political debate, people are whenever at the end of that thread does someone go, do you know what? You're right. They never do, because they've done.
If they do, Benjamin, they say, do you know what? You're right. And they don't mean it, do they? They just do a passive aggressive little gesture to finish the argument with.
So it's giving everyone the freedom to be where they are. But if they want to feel better, it might be worth looking at other avenues. And it's a softly approach. I don't want to battle that. And that's what I think what I was saying at. And I know you're getting that as well.
Okay, absolutely. Deciding on whether happiness is good or a good or bad thing is a fool's errand. What difference does it make what anyone thinks about that? All that I do know from my own personal experience is that I don't like feeling unhappy. And that doesn't make it a bad thing. That makes it a thing. And a thing I might want to do something about. And that's why I might turn to somebody like yourself to help me with that.
Well, going back to, because I know I'm a time's up really, but but with the idea of we have a guidance system. So animals have instincts, right? The birds fly south just before a snowstorm. Animals find their way to the one tiny watering hole. They know they've got it. We've got instinct. It's called our emotional guidance. So how do things feel? If I don't like mushrooms, I try to like them, I don't. So if I try to give myself mushrooms, I don't like them. I know. I don't like being like 41 saying, "Can you take the mushrooms out?" But I just don't like them. But I don't like the texture. Anyway, it's another thing. But I would not buy mushrooms and cook and eat them because I don't like them. Because my taste buds are going, ugh. And we have that same guidance. So, it's yes, I need to be aware. Like, I think, was it Pete saying about interest about Russia? Pete, by the way, this is not about you. I feel like it is, but it's not.
Not about you, Pete.
Sorry, Pete. What I'm saying is that we've got a choice, haven't we? So you could be interested in something. And then if after a while you think, this is starting not to taste good, then you think, right, I've been on here too long. And I think that is kind of what I want to leave with, is we have that choice. What makes us feel better in this moment? And sometimes it is to find out what's going on, but then we know. But then, then it's a choice over how we feel, what we feed in our mind, so what we're reading. And then we have a choice. Obviously, when I come back next week, I'll share some other studies about minds and how we look for things positive. It's really cool. The bad mind phenomenon I'll talk about next week.
Really? Okay. All right. So
it's why if you buy a new car, you keep seeing that car everywhere.
That's called reticular activation as well, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Well,
the base of that is, Carl. Sorry, just to jump in finally. I might as well say the kind of answer to that is because we've trained our brain when we buy a car, like a yellow car, and then we see that yellow car everywhere. It's because in our brain is looking for it. It's important to us. We've installed it. So of course, if we've installed negativity or we install looking for negativity, we'll see it. And that's what I'm saying. So as you start to train your brain to be more optimistic, to be more grateful, you will see more things, be grateful and optimistic. And that's what the kind of science behind that is proving as well.
I am grateful and optimistic about you saying that, because I know from my own point of view, and this is what empathy is, isn't it? If you said you were, and Pete, by the way, I can't see where you sent me a sunset, but we have got a rainbow to finish with from Ian Turner. So thank you for that, Coach Turner. Benjamin, I think, has done a fantastic job of stepping in your big trainers today. But the gratitude, I can't remember what you said, but the beauty of, I'm very grateful and optimistic about our conversation, about the particular things you said, because this love of the sunset you have is perhaps a trained, kids aren't really doing that, are they? You say to a kid, look at the beautiful sunset, it's like, okay, great, and then they go on and do. But for adults, it's like we've gone out, haven't we, on a long arc, and we're coming back to these beautiful things like sunsets that remind us of the child, you could say, of momentary joy. And each time, the beautiful thing that I'm aware of in talking to this about you is the joy of that. And it doesn't have to be a sunset, but whatever it is that affirms and has you feel grateful and optimistic will, in that Baader-Meinhof reticular activation way, deepen your experience, I'm guessing as well. Okay, so you feel it more and more, don't you? And I'm feeling your heart, I'm feeling your joy about you talking about seeing a sunset. This is how it works, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but exactly. So going back to your kid about the sunset, if you look at kids, they'll pick up stones and just love, oh, this is the best stone ever. They carry it around for
every time we go out. What was that?
Another guess. We get so many.
Yeah.
And that's so going back to what we said about gratitude when we first started speaking to James. Gratitude is trained, and you've got to train yourself. And as you start to be grateful on the smaller little things like kids are, you'll then naturally see more things to be grateful. You'll naturally feel gratitude easier. So I can literally cry at a sunset sometimes. But then what's interesting about life is we all want different things. Some people love train spotting. Some people love football. It's following your bliss, finding things that make you feel better. Do that. Be informed, but find the things that inspire you and do that. Whether it's sunsets, tulips, football, train spotting.
But don't turn it into an ideology, because you'll be unhappy again as soon as you've done that. Squire of the Shire says, and this is the first of a 4-week residency now. This is booked up. Iberian FM phone in from 10 till 10:30 of the next. That's good for you, is it, James? You're Benjamin, not James, of course. You can join us.
James is a great guy, so I'm quite flattered to be compared with him.
Well, that's why I did.
Yes, I'm here next few weeks.
Okay, this has really resonated with us, listening to the conversation today with you and Benjamin. Really helpful. And Sarah, morning to you. My favorite book is The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, to actually see what loving yourself and others looks like. That sounds good, doesn't it? And let me see if I can find the messenger message. I think you probably sent it to one of my pages rather than me, Pete. We'll come back to that. But we have got a picture of a rainbow. Look at that. Thank you. Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Oh, yeah.
Just on the horizon there in Pembrokeshire, in the freshly reunited kingdom. Or whatever it was that happened on Saturday, whatever sense you've made of that yourself. But that is that is a thing of beauty right there. And that book that I was trying to remember the name of, but it's worked on me, The Way of No Thinking and the Prophecies. Here you go, Benjamin. The Way of No Thinking, the Prophecies of Japan's Kunihiro. It's still not there. Kunihiro Yamate is the last name of that writer. And it suggests, Benjamin, that we might go back to that completely intuitive state that you were talking about, where we stop thinking and rationalizing and ideologizing that gets us into so much trouble.
I think as well, we don't want to take away modern life. There's so many amazing things we can do. We can communicate like this all around the world. But then we've got lost in all that information. And I think what now we just get coming back to the discernment of actually realizing that the simple things matter as well. But also, it's great that I can chat to you in Portugal. Do you know what I mean? So I think we're just finding that equilibrium. So we've gone one extreme, we're just finding that equilibrium where, yes, I love the fact that I don't have to bang my clothes to clean them. I love the fact that a machine does it for me. Do you know what I mean? Yes. I'm not being truthful. I'm saying I'm grateful for that.
I get it.
I can spend my day doing other things rather than clean my clothes. So there are amazing things about modern technology and modern life. It's just we've lost some of those little things and we feel a little bit lost in life. It's because we forgot the true core of who we are as well. Like that we do want to see simpler things. We do enjoy interactions. We do want to have fun. We do want to, play. So when I say play is going to people to watch football. Play is going to do some dancing class. It's finding that core childlike innocence that we kind of lost. That mixed with modern reality is probably the perfect balance because we need that.
Oh, mate, and what a lovely note to end on. Yeah. And it's not that difficult. If you try and do it, if you try and make everyone else do it, and make it a political, ideological movement, that's going to be quite difficult. But a sunset, I understand, will be available this evening, which you can.
That's a good joke. every evening. No, you're absolutely right. I think it's coming back to that core that if you try and push other people on it, because our spirits like freedom. We don't like being told what to do. You tell a kid not to do it, they'll want to do it. You tell them to do it, they don't want to do it. So if we go out there pushing our ideologies of what you should do, they don't want to listen. You just live your life as best you can, and people will ask if they're interested in how you live in. And I think you let your life prove it rather than.
Very good. Okay, go around smiling. That was the homework from the Good Morning Portugal show. Smile like you've just done a little cheeky guff with a little smile on your face for the rest of the week.
No, a cheeky guff, then if you're in it, you're not be smiling. It's a cheeky guff and then you walk off. Fair play.
Great homework. See you next week. Take care. Bye for now. Have a great day. Ciao, ciao.
Bye, bye.